Morning, Stephen. Morning, Sue. Got your breath back from that one yet? That was some finish, wasn't it? Let's start with Declan Rice, shall we? Further evidence as to why they spent so much on him?
I think so, yeah. And obviously with a big price tag often comes huge expectation. And I think they asked that question, didn't they, yesterday? And he said he's tried not to think about that. He's just tried to play his football and continue to be consistent as he was for West Ham. And I thought he was brilliant yesterday. Obviously the goal, but just how he senses danger. We know that that's a real strength of his, you know, the breaking up of play, the energy that he provides. But it was also his composure. I thought on the ball was excellent. And he said he likes playing in the 6, but he's learning the 8 role. And you know, I just love the fact that he keeps saying, I'm eager to learn, I want to learn more, I want to become better. And that must be like a coach's and manager's dream, mustn't it?
Yeah, because afterwards as well, what he was saying in that interview was just brilliant to see him pitchside chatting away like that. He was said perhaps when he was younger, or maybe even last season, he wouldn't have had a shot there. He would have tried to put it into the middle. So it shows that he's going to get even better, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the big thing is he should have probably scored a couple more. He should have had more goals already this season, and he's getting in the right areas, isn't he? That's the big thing. But having the confidence of people in and around you to tell you to take those shots on. I think the big thing for me is that he's adapting his role within the Arsenal team. I think so often we're used to seeing him at West Ham breaking things up and then driving with the ball. Now he knows there's players in and around him where he can simplify his game. He can almost conserve more energy throughout a game, so it'll help him last longer in games and have more quality throughout the game as well. So yeah, I think it was another positive performance, but I think there's so much more to come from Declan Rice in an Arsenal shirt. I think this is just sort of scratching the surface of how good he can be.
Yeah, Stephen, it was interesting because also in that interview, he was asked quite a few times about his price tag in that interview. As a player, you don't set that, do you? Is that... Would that sort of ruffle you a little if you were constantly asked about that?
Well, I mean, I went for, at the time, I was the most expensive left-back in British football. And to me, I went to Aston Villa and suddenly felt like I had to do more than I did in my previous club. I had to reach that expectancy of being that figure. And that affected my game for long periods, and it probably didn't really recover from that. When I look back on it now and think, if only I'd have understood they bought me for that price for a reason, to do what I've been bought for. And I think there's sometimes where you look at Declan Rice, he's simplifying his game, he's keeping it simple. It's almost like, I'm not going to buy into that expectancy that you all want. I'm not going to buy into the question that you keep on asking me of, is the price tag weighing you down? Stop talking about it because it's not bothering me. My job is to perform on the pitch and do what I can do on the pitch. And I think that's great from his point of view. Whether he spoke to people about it, how do you deal with that situation? What's it like? What's expected from, what's the manager actually said from him? As the manager turned around and said, listen, I don't want you to do what you've done at West Ham. I see you playing a different type of role, and that he's bought into that straight away. So I think it comes from your personality as well, and what you like, and the people who are in around you, and what you work on. Yeah,
I think that's because he said that, didn't he? I can't control that price. I can't control what people are going to pay for me. I've just got to go out and play my football. And he just seems like I suppose a big character to be able to maybe put that to one side, because that must be difficult, you know, because you think, oh, I've got to play even better because I've been sold for this amount of money. But he, like you said, he's just really just fit into that role at Arsenal and performing at a really high level.
Yeah, another late show from Arsenal. What does it say then about their mentality and about their team ethic?
Well, it's just the never say die attitude, isn't it? It's to keep going, and obviously the win is huge, but sometimes I think winning like that makes it even sweeter, doesn't it? Yeah. You know, when it's so late on, it could have gone either way. The word, or the two words, fine margins, were spoken so much throughout, and it is, I think, in big games like that, in tight games, it is just a fine margin. I like the fact that Arsenal went back to that sort of back four, which saw them so well, I think, over last season. You know, I know Mikel Arteta's been trying different things, maybe tweaking things, but it sort of disrupted the side a little bit, and they probably haven't played at the levels that I suppose they've set the level so high now, haven't they? And we expect them to play at that level all the time, and that's obviously not always going to happen. But, you know, saying that, they've still got 10 points, which I think is massively important. But I liked that sort of settle back four. I thought they sort of, it just looked more like Arsenal of last season.
I think the big thing is when you're watching that game yesterday, you always feel like whenever Arsenal attack, they have ideas and an idea of a process of what they've worked on in the training ground, what worked well for them last year. They never stray from that. They never start going direct and going, like, we've got to do something completely different. The process is there, and the trust in the process is evident for every single Arsenal player. They believe the style of football and what Mikel Arteta is asking them to achieve is the right way to win a football game.
Is it the case then that perhaps at the end of last season maybe they became too predictable? Is that why he's sort of trying to find different ways of playing? And you don't never want one of your players injured, but the fact that Partey was injured, that forced his hand in a good way, did it? Yeah,
quite possibly. I just think that when you think of last season, it was a brilliant season. No one expected them to do what they did. We all thought they'd be in around the top four, but no one really saw them challenging. I think it was just quality in the end that told, and probably the expectation of what was on top of them was that they haven't been in that situation for a long time, and I think that was the two major factors. But then they bring in players in the summer and then suddenly they've strengthened and you go, all right, that makes them stronger. I understand where you say they have to find a different way and change the style. I think they will do that naturally. They will evolve over time. And Mikel Arteta has made mistakes in his time as Arsenal manager, whether it was at the beginning, maybe he's looked at the last couple of games and gone, I thought that might work. It's not worked. Maybe I'll revert back to that for now, make sure that we stay in the mix, and we'll work on something behind the scenes that will eventually come to fruition and it'll work for us. But that's a sign of a good manager.
Yeah, because obviously his tutelage came under Pep.
Yeah.
They're kind of kindred spirits, both obsessed. The problem is if you're a manager, you're obsessing the whole time about this stuff. And go back to the Champions League final when Pep was in charge of Manchester City against Chelsea, and maybe he overthought it was the accusation. Yeah. Well, it's not for me to criticise Pep, but that was the accusation.
Sounds like you are, Rob.
No. That was the accusation thrown at him at the time.
Yeah.
Because if you're a great team and this is the way you play, then shouldn't you be confident enough to go, we will beat you playing our way?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult because I think when you look at Manchester City and you look at how Pep Guardiola always tries to evolve, doesn't he? Always tries something maybe different that we go, oh, wow, he's tried something different here. And it's because he never, ever wants to become predictable. He wants to always be ahead of everybody else, and it's like, yes, they've gone and won the treble, but how's he then going to go and win the treble the next season, and how's he going to become better next season? I think that's what Arteta's looked at, and he's gone, okay, we finished second, we had a brilliant season, but we didn't quite win the title. What do we need to do now to progress and develop? Yes, bring in signings, so obviously bringing in Declan Rice was huge for them. We've sort of mentioned and praised him, but how else can we tweak things and maybe just try different things to see if it worked? And hasn't quite worked, but it's not to say it's not going to work. Maybe it just needs time. Because you looked at Zinchenko, he was sort of going from left back into midfield, but he wasn't just going into the left side of midfield. He was going all the way over to the right side of midfield, which is a long way back to left back when you've got to get back and cover. But there's got to be a reason for that. And that's just little things. Like you say, he's obsessed, like Pep Guardiola's obsessed. And they're always trying to find a way to become better.
Yeah. The country's most expensive left-back at the time would never have done that, would it? It'd be chugging up and down there.
Oh, just stay in my position, stay in my spot, know me zone.
No, I think West Ham, Liverpool and Tottenham fans, in particular Tottenham fans, will be saying, OK, hang on a second, we've got the same number of points here. Yeah. But are Arsenal the closest competitors to City over the 38 games of the season still? Or is, even at this early stage, others who are going to push City more relevant?
I think we have to judge Arsenal as the favourites to push City just purely on last season and the addition of obviously Declan Rice coming in and other signings. But then you look at Liverpool and you say they've strengthened, they will close the gap. Can they close it as much as what they were away last year? We'll wait and see. It looks promising at the moment. Tottenham, we know that they've improved, but they've lost the main man in front of goal. They've lost goals. However, we're seeing at the moment that they've been able to score goals from different positions, and they don't look like they've really suffered that much, which is a huge compliment to them. But the gap from finishing outside the top 4 to then competing for the top of the league, that's going to be very difficult to do, both for Liverpool, Chelsea and for Tottenham. I think the only thing you would say is that Jurgen Klopp's been there before. He understands what it's like. Majority of the squad have been there before, challenged for the league. Some of them have won the league. So you look at that from their point of view, there's a different mentality within the Liverpool changing room. There will be from certain aspects of the Chelsea players as well. But with the influx of players that they've had, it needs to gel quicker. And that's the issue that they'll have. And
I think that experience is vital. Like you said, the Liverpool players that have been through it and they know, it's like the know-how, isn't it? You've done it before. And similarly with Arsenal, that they went so close last season. Yes, they'll have been absolutely, devastated that they didn't quite get to where they wanted to do, and that was to win the title. But they'll learn from that, they'll reflect on it, and you think that this season, if they're in that position again, they'll know maybe how to deal with that better.
Yeah, we chatted about Declan Rice being a big hit already for Arsenal. Their other big money signing, Kai Havertz, still, is it fair to say, struggling? I wonder, I've watched him a lot, and you tell me, because you're far more educated than I am, what is his best position? I still don't know after all these years in England.
I think that's the big thing. I think he almost felt that when he was going for Kai Havertz, it was an upgrade on Granit Xhaka. Technically, tactically, can play more advanced. But by bringing in Declan Rice, he felt that he could afford to put an attacker in because of the ground that Declan Rice covers. Being able to sit into that centre-back position, it almost gives them more of a defensive solidity. Then you're asking Kai Havertz then to almost float in the 10 role and then to join in Nketiah or to join in with Gabriel and be almost a fourth attacker in that line. It's not quite worked for him yet, but I think we spoke about him last week or a couple of weeks ago where we said, well, Arteta's seen something in him and it might just take a little bit of time to adjust into that role that he's looking to play. Again, I know we'll talk about, well, he's already been in the Premier League now for a few years. He understands the pace of it and the style of it, but it's understanding the new system, the understanding of how he's being asked to play within this system. That might take a little time. It might even come to the point where he goes, he doesn't fit into the system. And that's a gamble we took and it hasn't worked, but it was a gamble worth taking.
He is a Champions League winner,
yeah.
isn't he? So, yeah, okay.